Hey, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of Alter Life. Honestly, I wasn't planning on recording today or streaming today. For those who don't know, I do stream this live because I don't like editing stuff. So I just kind of put it out there, unedited, unfiltered. And I wasn't going to do this because, frankly, I woke up kind of feeling like blah. And I've been leaning into the idea of kind of just trusting how I'm feeling and not forcing things and just allowing things. But then I was kind of sitting with it and I realized these two fundamental universal laws, as I see them, have just been so front and center in my life for so long, and they're front and center in so many conversations that I've been having recently. I thought it would be really easy and hopefully insightful and powerful to talk about and share these two universal principles to healing and really living that I find myself focusing on and being guided by and trusting and surrendering to. So, without further ado, I'm just going to share these two universal laws and then I'm going to unpack and dive into each one individually. So, the first universal law is what you resist persists. Not going to say anything more about that right now. The second universal law is you can't receive when you're holding on or when you're attached. Again, let yourself sit with these universal laws. And before we dive into the first one, I want to share our quote of the day. This quote of the day is anything you accept fully and will take into you. Sorry. I don't know why I can't read right now. Anything you accept fully will take you into peace. That is the miracle of surrender. This is a quote by Eckhart Tolle. I'm going to read it again and just feel into it a little bit more with more fullness and presence. Anything you accept fully will take you into peace. That is the miracle of surrender. I think that this quote sort of speaks to what we're going to be talking about and exploring and hopefully feeling into today. And before I go on into the first universal law that I'm talking about, what you what you resist persists. Before we take one step further, I just want to also invite you to get out of your head and to get more into your feeling state, your intuitive state. Our brain is such a gift. Obviously, we wouldn't be alive. We wouldn't be here without our brain. But overthinking and over intellectualizing gets a lot of us into some trouble. Anyways, our brain, our thinking mind, our intellect can kind of be this double-edged sword, a tool for good, but then also we can think ourselves into stress, anxiousness, overwhelm, etc. So I encourage you and invite you to just be and just feel and don't think too much about what we're talking about today and really feel into it. All right, let's talk about this first universal law, which is what you resist persists. I was introduced to this, honestly, years and years ago. And like anything, once being introduced to it, it was this common sense sort of concept that I understood, but how was I relating to that? And how was I allowing that understanding conceptually to actually transfer and translate into how I was living? So again, that's the invitation. So what you resist persists. Let's talk about it. Essentially, what you resist persists because when you are resisting something, you're putting that which you are resisting front and center in your mind. And even though you don't want it, it's still there. And this is a law of the universe because the universe, and take that for what it is. I don't know if you understand or jive with the terminology of universe, but if you're clicking on this video or this episode, you probably are at least like open to universal laws and wisdom. And when we're talking about these universal laws, the universe doesn't really understand or comprehend that we don't want something or we do want something. It just understands the thing. And I know a lot of people and teachings around the power of manifestation really point to this idea of really when you say, I don't want this to happen, I don't want this to happen. Well, that is more likely to happen because there's so much more attention and focused on that outcome. And it was really put articulately and beautifully to me years and years ago when I was reading Caroline Miss. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She's written some good, insightful books. But I forget if it was in a lecture or in a book, but she would say that worry is like negative prayer. And we're all familiar with what praying is, whether you believe that your prayers are answered or listened to or not. Essentially, worry is the inverse of a prayer, meaning that we're still putting that intentional energy and focus out there to God, to the universe, to nature. And if we do believe that, or do have the idea that maybe it's possible that our so-called prayers are answered, then when we're putting out that negative kind of thought, that which we don't want to feel, that which we don't want to happen, then that's just like emphasizing it and bringing more attention and awareness to it. And now that we kind of understand the nature of what you resist persist, what that kind of means, I think it's also helpful to understand what that means in terms of the physiologic effects. That's what I like to think and feel when we're talking about resistance. Resistance and worry and fear and that kind of gripping onto something. What that feels like in terms of our physiology is tension. It's physiologic stress. And we understand through the power of the brain-body connection, the autonomic nervous system, psychoneuroendoimmunology, or whatever. I think those are the four kind of branches of science that help us understand how the brain and body are connected. When we are overthinking, using our brain, creating that tension in our body, that manifests by essentially blocking our healing. So when we're talking about what you resist persists in terms of our health, generally we're talking about symptoms, conditions, diagnoses. I've got this headache, but I really don't want to have this headache. And just like me waking up this morning, I've got this kind of blah feeling, just kind of, I didn't sleep well. And, I don't want to feel this way. And what you resist persists because the more you don't want to do something, the more you're trying to avoid doing or experiencing something, the more we're focusing on the thing that we are resisting. And the bigger it becomes in our awareness and physiologically as well, especially when we're talking about specific health conditions. So, of course, this is an incredibly powerfully paradoxical thing. The way to overcome or transcend or let go of or heal from is by complete and total surrender to that which we are resisting or not wanting to happen. And there are a couple tools or strategies or kind of thought exercises that I've found helpful in helping me to navigate towards that place of surrender. And the first thought exercise, which is maybe the most challenging, is really just making peace with the fact that, okay, if you're dealing with a chronic condition, for example, say it's joint pain, it's hip pain or whatever. If you're dealing with that chronic condition, then making peace with that condition and making peace with it to the extent of, if I experience this symptom, this feeling, this thing, if I experience this forever, for as long as I live, how can I be at peace with that? So that's like one thought exercise, is kind of leaning into that incredibly uncomfortable, undesirable outcome, just being in complete and total acceptance and peace with this state of being the state of being which you might be with forever. And again, paradoxically, as you lean into that, it kind of eases out. But so that's the first thought exercise, is kind of exploring the nature of, can I be with this blank forever? And as you do so, this leads us to the second thought exercise or mental practice, if you will. If you were to consider being with blank forever, like how would you do that? Like essentially what I'm trying to articulate here is allowing yourself to gain a broadening of your perspective and allowing yourself to be fully in your life and not fully wrapped up with the condition, whether it be hip pain or a stomach ache or a headache or fatigue or whatever it might be. Allow yourself to be in your life in spite of what's happening. Essentially, allow yourself to broaden your horizon and your perspective and your feelings and your awareness beyond that which you're feeling. And in so doing, also hopefully invite yourself to feel gratitude and to feel the possibilities of like, okay, I'm experiencing this debilitating pain or whatever it might be. And while I'm experiencing this debilitating pain, how incredible is it that I have my loving family and that I have food on the table and that I have my like brain to be able to listen and watch and read and experience, and how amazing that like the birds are flying around and they're just so beautiful, and they like, just allow yourself to be fully in your life in spite of that which you are resisting or experiencing that's kind of sucking you in. And of course, the point here is that these are kind of conceptual thought exercises. And again, the intention is to lean into and open up to the possibilities of fully surrendering to that which you are resisting, accepting it, allowing yourself to accept it fully, paradoxically, so that it can ease up and flow through, because that's what experiences are designed to do, both in terms of the mental, emotional feelings, whether they be anxiety or depression or anything like that, or whether they be physical symptoms. We are self-healing, self-regulating, dynamic beings that have connection with innate wisdom, the healing power of nature, that brings us into balance. And it is our resistance to that, our attachment, which is what we'll talk about next, that prevents us from allowing the flow to flow. So again, this might be a conceptual exercise or understanding. Of course, you're using your brain to understand and interpret and make sense of the words that I'm speaking, but the invitation is to feel more deeply into it. I think I've got enough time to share my personal example with this. So I think some of you know that, I guess 8 or 9 months ago, at the end of last summer, around August, I started experiencing some chronic symptoms that I was resisting profoundly. Anytime I experience anytime I experience any symptom, whether it be a sprained ankle or something that's like more chronic and insidious, anytime I experience anything, I'm just like you. I don't want to experience it. So I resist it, but what I resist persists. So last summer, I was experiencing some chronic fatigue that kind of just hit me like, post quote unquote upper respiratory stuff. And, I was debilitated and kind of bedridden, which was totally uncharacteristic for me. And I was like, okay, I can deal with this for a week, can deal with this for maybe 2 weeks. But as 3rd week, 4th week, 5th week, 6th week, 10th week, 12th week rolled on, I was like, things got rough, and maybe you can relate or understand. So in the storm of these chronic symptoms, I was going through all of this stuff because, again, conceptually, I know this stuff pretty well. I've studied it, I've lived it, I've taught it. And despite knowing it very well, I'm always given opportunity, not always, knock on wood, but life gives me opportunities. Life gives us opportunities to deepen in our understanding. And that's the gift of life. It's for learning and healing and growing. So when I was struggling, yes, I was totally, debilitated, resisting. etc. And every day, what kept me healing was my life and was the awareness of all of the blessings that were all around me in spite of my debilitated state. Um, I realized that, and I don't know, I don't think I'll be able to articulate it that well, but I realized that what I was experiencing, what I was going through, was very much self-inflicted. It's not to say like the acute onset is self-inflicted, like when we sprain an ankle or have some injury or something like that. That's not self-inflicted necessarily. However, the degree to which we suffer very much is self-inflicted. So through our attachment, through our resistance, through our wanting to fix and change things. So my way out was spending more time in my life in spite of my debilitating fatigue. And yeah, sometimes it was hard. But the interesting thing, and maybe you've had a similar experience, when you are present with, in my case, of course, it was my daughter. When present with that love, that joy, I was able to get out of my own funk that I was keeping myself in, because being in my life broadened my perspective and allowed me to think about and focus on the things that were so amazing and beautiful and the blessings rather than the things that were consuming me. And again, I don't know if I'm articulating it that well, but it's like those powerful insights that, like, oh my gosh, like this is a self-inflicted thing, and my health is literally so close. Like the healing that I think we all seek is so close. It's always so much closer than we could ever realize. The way I feel it, it's like trying to come through, but it's our resistance that is keeping it from coming through and being fully expressed. And the message here is to be fully present in your life in spite of the feelings, the thoughts, the resistance, the fear. Just be fully present in your life and live your life as if you are perfectly healthy, whole, and complete to the best of your ability, because you are. And as you do that, that is the way that you are surrendering. That is essentially showing God, showing the universe that I'm here. I'm in my life and I'm surrendering to these feelings, symptoms, etc. All right, that's enough blabber about that. I'm going to move on to the lesson of the day here. Opening up the lesson of the day here. What is the? I know I wrote it down. Now I've got to read it. That's right. This is the lesson of the day. How you relate to the issue is the issue, which is very much along the lines of what you resist persists. It kind of ties in. Let me explain. How you relate to the issue is the issue. I think we're led to believe that the issue in our life, the quote unquote issues in our life, are the issues in our life. And we just got to like manage and fix the issues. But it's the way that we relate to the issues that really creates the issues. It's our perception of the issues that is the issue. So if we shift our perception, then the issue shifts and sometimes self-resolves. And taking it a step further, how we relate with ourself as we navigate the so-called issue is the ultimate issue. And the invitation here is to have that level of presence, unconditional love, compassion, patience, showing up to the best of your ability, and and allowing yourself the grace to navigate life in the way that you do. Essentially taking the pressure, taking the force, taking the tension out of the equation, and just let yourself be. So how you relate to the issue is the issue. How you relate to yourself as you navigate through the issue is the ultimate issue. So allow that to be your focus. Allow yourself to focus on the inner experience, the inner work, the inner process, the inner journey, rather than micromanaging the stuff that we are so accustomed to trying to focus on. That's the lesson of the day. A little break in the action before we move into the second universal law, which is you can't receive when you're attached. And I always like envision this as kind of the if you're like if you're watching the video, it's like you got your hands gripped and you're just like attached to something, and it's like life is trying to give you something like here, and but you're like have your hands grasped, so you can't like open up, you can't receive what life is giving us when we're attached. So open up, let go. And yes, this very much builds on and expands upon universal law, number one of what you resist persists, and speaking to the surrender of letting go to receive. And again, another very paradoxical thing. And this is due to the fact that this nature that we have to attach onto outcomes, processes, etc. We have a very limited perspective given the nature of our human thinking, human brain, and human perspective. We can never have the full broadness of the universal God perspective, if you will. So what we perceive is by nature very limited, very narrow-minded, even if we intend to be and strive to be open-minded to the infinite possibilities that I always speak to and try to remain open to. Despite being open to the infinite possibilities, the possibilities that are quote unquote infinite are only within the narrow-minded viewpoint that I, as Ben, hold, based on my conditioning, programming, etc. So again, the invitation here is to really, really let go and open up to the idea that we have no idea what is in store for us, and surrender and trust the idea that which we are being gifted is in fact a gift. It is in fact an opportunity for something greater. So this really, looking at life in this way, essentially life happening for us, life being a gift for us, rather than life and life circumstances happening to us and we just have to deal with them. Really orienting yourself in this way, again, beyond the conceptual, but like into the real experiential, anchoring, rooted, grounded in this being your reality, that life is happening for you. As you do that, that's like an incredible game changer, at least in my experience. Let me know if you've had any, profound insights or shifts or changes in how life unfolds as you navigate from that lens, from that angle, because essentially this puts you in total and complete control of your destiny, so to speak. This is an empowered stance in your life. And I know several months back, we talked about victimhood on the podcast and how alluring victimhood is and how it's so tempting to be drawn into that victim stance. And this is the opposite. Surrendering and letting go and really looking at life as happening for us, not happening to us. Easier said than done. And that's why life continues to happen. That's why we're continually gifted opportunities to deepen into this level of being and understanding and whatnot. So let me kind of scan through my notes here and see if I'm missing anything. Yeah. So, I don't think so. Don't need to overdo this, overcomplicate this one. You can't receive when you're attached. So what are you attached to? Hopefully these universal laws are kind of bringing up some self-reflection. What are you attached to? And of course, given the nature of kind of this health oriented conversation, oftentimes we're attached to outcomes, to like healing. And we can't allow our body to experience that if we're gripped onto it, because that shifts the dynamic of our physiology. And and also, we don't know, we actually, given the limited nature of our human thinking, we don't actually know how to heal. Just like allow yourself to know that you don't know how to heal. Like I mean, like you're thinking. You can't think your way into health. You've got to be in a state of alignment so that health unfolds naturally through you, through the incredible, mysterious, multifactorial, complex mechanisms by which life unfolds in all of living things on earth. So, yeah, it's really a stance of empowerment and also a stance of humility, and knowing that your role is to surrender, to trust, to let go. And I know this is kind of potentially leading into another direction, but this can be especially difficult when navigating, for example, the medical system, when we are essentially fed fear-based narratives. So we need to have this anchoring, or we're encouraged, we're given the opportunities to have this groundedness and this anchoring within the context of this universal law here of surrendering and letting go to receive, so that we aren't otherwise brainwashed or programmed continually to rely upon external forces, because that's just stripping away our potential, or at least the illusion of stripping away our potential. And of course, our perception and what we see is our reality. All right, I hope I'm not not overcomplicating these two universal laws, which are incredibly elegantly simple. That's kind of the cool thing. I always think about how some of the most profound things are some of the most simple things. What you resist persists. Super profound. When you're attached, you can't receive. You can't receive. Also, in my feeling, super profound. So allow yourself to be with that stuff. All right, moving into the challenge of the day. This one is, I encourage you to just take this not only day by day, but moment by moment. And the challenge of the day is to simply stop trying. I think that there is so much programming that we need to do and try and force, and we got to use our willpower and just overcome. And that's a gift. Yes, our willpower, our force, our intellect, our ability to create, that's a gift. But how can we harness that gift and kind of like allow that gift to be there, but do so in a way of surrendering to not trying? Not trying in the sense of, yeah, you still live, you still show up, you still drink water and eat food, but you're not attached to the outcome. And yeah, this challenge is one to take moment to moment, especially considering where you are. Maybe you're in a place of struggle. So try not to get out of the struggle and try to just let yourself struggle. How about that? Try that on for size. See how it works. Because then this is all coming from the fact that, again, what I've observed in myself and what I've observed hearing other people share their struggles with me. Most people who share their struggles with me are trying really hard not to struggle. And despite trying so hard not to struggle, despite doing all the right things physically and otherwise, there's still oftentimes a lot of struggle. So the invitation here is to completely like turn the whole equation on its head and just scramble it all up and build from the ground up your life based on totally different principles that are aligned with the fundamental nature and laws of the universe, principles that are aligned on the laws of what you resist persists, and you can't attach when you're fully, or you can't receive when you're fully when you're attached to the outcome. Build up your life from this stance of hopefully empowerment, peace, trust. And maybe you don't have a lot of evidence right now in your life to trust. Maybe you've got all the evidence and because you're focused on all the quote unquote negativity that has happened to you. So it's like your whole worldview is shaped by past events. But despite, just kind of consider yourself to be the artist of your life, painting the masterpiece that is you and your experience, and give yourself permission to just completely burn, shred, throw away, trash what's not working for you, and completely start fresh. And try that on for size and see how it feels. Give yourself permission, because that's what we're doing, whether we know it or not, whether we like it or not. We're always starting fresh. But so often we're starting fresh with the baggage and the programming and the conditioning that we have taken upon ourselves from past events and experiences. So yeah, just an invitation here to consider living from an empowered place, understanding these two universal laws, and let me know what you think. These laws have been so profound for me, but let me know how they feel in your life. And are they profound? What else has been some of the profound learnings, teachings, understandings that you've had that has really shaped your experience and understanding and empowered you to be who you are in your life? Let me know. Leave a comment, leave some feedback. And I guess that's it for now. And until next time, keep thriving.